I'd like to begin by playing you a few extracts from the opening chapters of Leo Tolstoy's great novel, Anna Karenina. Tolstoy starts with the problems in the Oblonsky family household.
Chapter 1. Happy families are all alike. Every unhappy family is unhappy in its own way. Everything was in confusion at the Oblonskys' house. The wife had discovered that the husband was carrying on an intrigue with a French girl who had been a governess in their family, and she had announced to her husband that she could not go on living in the same house with him. This position of affairs had now lasted 3 days, and not only the husband and wife themselves, but all the members of their family and household were painfully conscious of it.
So the opening lays out the situation, and in the second chapter, Tolstoy goes on to describe how the husband feels about it.
Stepan Arkadyevitch was a truthful man in his relations with himself. He was incapable of deceiving himself and persuading himself that he repented of his conduct. He could not at this date repent of the fact that he, a handsome, susceptible man of 34, was not in love with his wife, the mother of 5 living and 2 dead children, and only a year younger than himself. All he repented of was that he had not succeeded in hiding it better from his wife. But he felt all the difficulty of his position, and was sorry for his wife, his children, and himself. Possibly he might have managed to conceal his sins better from his wife if he had anticipated that the knowledge of them would have had such an effect on her. He had never clearly thought out the subject, but he had vaguely conceived that his wife must long ago have suspected him of being unfaithful to her and shut her eyes to the fact. He had even supposed that she, a worn-out woman, no longer young or good-looking and in no way remarkable or interesting, merely a good mother, ought from a sense of fairness to take an indulgent view. It had turned out quite the other way.
So from these early passages, we learn of the problem, we learn how the husband feels about it, and we learn quite a lot about his character. We can summarise this by saying Stepan is unrepentant. He only wishes he hadn't been found out. Whilst feeling sorry for his wife, he was nevertheless surprised she reacted so badly. He thought that because she was old and worn out, that's how he regards her, though she's only 33 years old and is younger than he is. So because she's old and worn out, she ought to have realised he'd lost interest in her, and she should allow him to have his infidelities with younger women. And he is slightly shocked to discover that she doesn't think like that. And we can make judgments about Stepan's character from this, for Stepan is self-indulgent and lacks awareness of other people, being concerned only with his own pleasure and unable to perceive things beyond his own perspective. But nothing is spoken in these opening passages. There is no dialogue. We know the husband's intimate thoughts because the narrator goes into Stepan's mind and tells us what the character is thinking. This is typical prose narration. But what do you do when you don't have a narrator? When you are working in a visual medium such as cinema and have only action and dialogue to tell a story? In a novel, the reader knows what the character is thinking because the narrator tells us. But unless the screenwriter indulges in rather outmoded narrational voiceovers, she can't do that. So how do you tell a story for a visual medium? And who is telling it if there is no narrative voice? Well, these are difficult questions and ones you'll have to continually grapple with as screenwriters. But to get us thinking about telling a story in a visual medium, let's take a look at the opening scene from Hitchcock's Rear Window. Whilst you are watching, make a note of what you learn, and in particular, what you learn about the protagonist. And then ask yourself, how did you learn this? In other words, who is telling the story? Pause the video if you like at the end of the Rear Window clip to give you a moment to think about your answers before you listen to what I've got to say.
wake up in the morning, do you feel tired and run down? Do you have that listless feeling?
So, what have we learned? Well, what I've learned is that it's hot, over 90 degrees. People are sweating and sleeping out on their balconies. I've also learned something about the neighbourhood. It's urban and a small courtyard separates a number of apartments. There's a narrow way in and out. Residents can see into each other's homes, so it's intimate in many ways, but there are, as you'd expect, quite a diverse set of characters living there. There's a slightly out-of-shape middle-aged man, an old couple sleeping out on their balcony, a skimpily dressed athletic young woman, and the protagonist. He's called Jeffries. He's got a broken leg and he's sleeping. But beyond that, we can infer a little more. He's probably a photographer. He's not only broken his leg, but also his camera, and we can also guess from one of his photographs that he may well have broken his camera and his leg taking a picture of a racing car accident. So he's probably a sports photographer, or certainly an action-adventure photographer. We see some exotic pictures from around the globe. But we also see some glamour shots from a woman's magazine. So he probably does fashion photography as well. Perhaps still further, we can infer from the fact that we see a negative image of a woman that there will be some problematic issue with the male relationship to women in this film. So we know quite a lot about our protagonist, which we could sum up by saying Jeffries lives in an apartment with a view looking out on his neighbours. He's a photographer who takes dramatic pictures, but also makes money from fashion photography. He's currently disabled due to a broken leg, impotent if you like, and he's got some sort of issue with women. But the bigger question to answer is, how do we know this? Or in other words, who is telling us the story? Well, clearly there is nothing like a narrator of the kind we're used to in a novel telling us this. No, rather it is the camera that is telling the story, as it pans round the apartment block and moves into close-up of Jeffrey's broken leg and Jeffrey's photographs, showing us details of his life from which we can infer a great deal about him. So in fiction film, we might say on a most basic level, it is the camera that is the narrator. And this poses a great many problems for the screenwriter. So, to begin with, when writing for a visual medium, you have to write in such a way that character can be understood from the outside, from cues in the environment. For as a screenwriter, you can't easily or credibly give access to the characters' inner thoughts. You can only show their external actions and write the words they speak out loud. And the problem with this is obvious. As humans, we rarely speak our intimate thoughts out loud, rarely tell others what we are thinking and feeling. Instead, we circle around difficulties. We're falsely polite, we lie directly at times, and so on. So, for example, if a girl, let's call her Millie, invites her boyfriend, let's call him George, to tell her he loves her, How do we as screenwriters couch the reply, assuming he's planning on leaving her, in such a way that it satisfies Millie but makes clear to the viewer that George is lying? Well, in a novel, we can simply go inside George's head and tell the reader his thoughts. In a first-person narrative, the narrator could simply tell the reader, "I decided to lie to her. I love you," I said, feigning passion. In a third-person narrative, the writer can do something similar. "I love you," Georgie Porgy answered, knowing it was easier to lie than to have a confrontation. He wasn't going to let silly Millie get in the way of his taking the train tonight. So for the novelist, none of this is a problem. In the screenplay, we have to find a different solution, as all we have is the external action and spoken words. We don't have access to George's inner thoughts. And this brings up a second key point about the screenplay, in that a final draft is exactly not that. Rather, a screenplay is a blueprint for others to work with: actors, directors, producers, cinematographers, sound recordists, and so on. And to some extent, they will help solve the problems that the screenplay writer is continually grappling with. And so this brings us on to a second key feature of narration in film, to what is generally referred to as moving image aesthetics, or the language of film. Although we said that in the opening of Rear Window, the camera functions as narrator, this is only partially true. Other filmic features are telling us things. The soundtrack plays its part, with the voice on the radio revealing something about the character of the middle-aged man. And more generally, dialogue in film is often used for narrational purposes, to develop the plot, move the action forward, and reveal something about character. Even music can play its part in narration. It need not merely be a matter of mood. Music is often linked to character, and can even alert the audience to story action. Think of how the dramatic music in Jaws, the da-da, 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 prefigures the arrival of the shark. So here, the music acts as narrator. It tells us something bad is going to happen. So besides looking at key writing skills, as screenwriters, we need to be aware of the components of film language, of what we call moving image aesthetics, and we will address elements of these in the lectures, whilst concentrating on and practicing key elements of the screenwriting craft in the workshops. I'd like to finish up by showing you a short film. Each week you'll watch at least one short film. You'll be writing a script for a short film, so you'll need to watch as many as possible to see how they work and to familiarise yourself with their structures. This week, it's Devon Avery's 1 Minute Time Machine. It's clever, witty, charming, romantic, and satirical. I hope you enjoy it as much as I did.
Excuse me. Do you mind if I,
Free country. What's that?
Oh, nothing.
Sure it's not a 1 minute time machine?
Huh? Damn it. Excuse me. Do you mind if I,
It's freight country. What's that?
Well, it certainly isn't a 1 minute time machine. Damn it. It's my lunchbox.
It's weird. I like weird.
Cool. I'm Lanes. I'm James.
James. Are you trying to pick me up?
No, come on. Do I look that strong?
Are you trying to pick me up?
Yes. I mean, trying to.
Try harder.
Hi.
Harder.
Coffee.
Harder.
Dinner. We go back to my place.
Right now?
make sweet love. And fuck our brains out.
Finally. I'm so sick of men who can't just ask for what they want.
I want you to spank my bad little boy bottom. Come on, I thought you'd... Yeah, no. I want to spank you.
Oh, we're going right now.
Oh, hey, you like science?
Science. My 5-year-old niece likes science. I have a doctorate in quantum mechanics.
Oh, you like theoretical quantum mechanics regarding both our perceptions of time and how we deal with universal spatial geography.
Yeah. What's your favorite part?
The butt. We were still talking about science. Time travel.
Me too. Oh, it's amazing. Scary as shit, though, right?
I know. Wait, what? Why?
Well, have you read the chapter on practical application?
Of course, I read the chapter on practical application.
And?
And I am just gonna hit this little red button here.
Excuse me. I'm sorry. Who are you? What are you doing with my book?
Shh. I need to read this real fast. Don't worry. This one doesn't even count. Let's see here, huh? 95 pages? Fuck that. No, I haven't actually read that. Been too busy doing instead of reading.
Doing actual practical time traveling? Have you used that yet?
I don't know. Maybe.
For me?
Does that creep you out?
No. No, it's actually really beautiful.
You really think so?
Yeah, I've never had a man fight for me before, let alone die for me.
Well, I'm sorry, die? No, I'm still here.
Yeah, not you, exactly, but that's the point of the chapter, right? Time travel's impossible.
It's not impossible. I've done it.
No, every time you've pushed that button, you've created a copy of yourself in a parallel world that exists 1 minute in your past. Your original body dies in the genuine or the earlier universe.
Oh,
How many times?
I don't know. Maybe 16?
Oh my God. Ah, help! Anybody? Oh, not that kind of. Are you? Oh my God! Oh God! Shit! Someone please help me! Oh God! It's touching me! Okay, wake up now.
I've killed myself 16 times.
You know, the bright side is you're the first successful multiple suicide. It's pretty cool. Hey, look. Let's go back to my place and just forget all about this stupid little murder box.
Murder box.
The suicide machine. Who cares? That wasn't you. It was them.
I can't.
Shit, really?
How am I ever gonna get a boner again, knowing what I know?
Damn it. Regina, too, you better thank me for this. What's your favorite part?
Time travel.
Me too. It's amazing. Scary as...
Scary? What do you mean?
No, nothing. I mean, it's not like this is some multi-dimensional murder box or anything, right?
Huh?